All right, so we're joined from WAPT News here in Jackson by weekend anchor, reporter, just all around jack of all trades, drill of all trades over there at WAPT, Michaila Franklin. We thank you so much
Yes.
for joining us today. We're in the Arts and AV career cluster here in our college career readiness class. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. We're recording this for all of our friends at Rosa Scott, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So we thank you so much for joining us today.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. And hello to everybody. Good morning.
Now, before we get into what all it is you do and what you have done, you from Hawthorne, California, over there in the LA area, and then you went to the University of Montevallo down near Birmingham in Alabama and started your career in Alabama before you got to where you are now. So take us through that whole process, because started on the West Coast and then ended up over here in Mississippi.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I still ask myself the same question every day. How did I end up 2,000 miles away from home? And, I just keep finding myself back in the South. So yeah, I grew up in Los Angeles, California. If you've ever been there, just 10 minutes outside of LAX airport. So I wanted to play college soccer. So senior year of high school, you're in the top recruiting stages. If you play high school sports, you kind of know what it's like. So, I had a few options, and some of those options took me as far as Maine, the border of Canada, and one of them took me to Montevallo, Alabama. And I knew right then and there when I flew over the state of Alabama that is exactly where I was supposed to be. So I landed in Montevallo, played college soccer there for 4 years. I got to intern at our sister station, WVTM 13 in Birmingham. And I was there a few months. So I started my internship my spring semester of senior year, and that was in January, 2 months before COVID hit. So I started my internship at WVTM, having lots of fun, learning the news business. And I mean, 2 months later, the last day I went to the news station, I did not know was going to be my last day. Everything shut down. So they were like, you're not supposed to be here today. COVID is finally in Alabama. We're going to have to just wrap it up. So, from there, my spring semester was cut short, kind of like a lot of the whole country, plans were put on hold. So I moved back home to Los Angeles for a few months, worked at Lululemon, was kind of trying to figure out, do I really want to go into news? What is it that I want to do? Just the big question and all those pressures that you have in college of what do I want to do the rest of my life? So I kind of was like, let me give this one more chance. And I put my resume reel on YouTube, and I'm not even kidding. A few hours later, I woke up to an email from my news director, Rick McLaughlin, who was the news director at the time here in Jackson. Hello from Jackson, Mississippi. We know you interned at WVTM. We have a position open. We'd love to interview you for it. And the rest is history. 3 years later, I am still in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah, and just in that time, you've covered some big stories, and we'll get to those in a minute. But one thing I want to talk about is in this career, everybody sees what's on camera, but there's so much prep work before you ever turn the red light on. Because learning the news business, especially in smaller markets, you're operating your own cameras, you're editing your own stories, you're writing your own scripts, and then after all of that, you've got to be ready to go live on television. So talk about a little bit about the behind the scenes work that the viewer doesn't see.
Oh my goodness, there's chaos. I mean, that is the only way to describe it. There is definitely so much work. So kind of a fun fact, when I started here at WABT, I was an MMJ and a producer. So do they know kind of what an MMJ is, what an MMJ
that's
does?
multimedia journalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
So MMJ is multimedia journalist. So essentially you are, in other words, a one-man band. You run your own camera, you edit your own stories, and you do your own interviews. You do it all. All the time you'll get asked, where's your cameraman? I am my cameraman. So I started here as an MMJ and a producer. And I mean, you really just learn the whole full hamster wheel of news. So, to answer your question, behind the scenes, when you start work at 9:30 in the morning, you're setting up interviews. You are literally racing against the clock. So if you don't want to work a boring job, this would be a good job for you, because you are working at all times of the day to make your story come to life at 5 p.m. when that show starts, because whether you have your story in or not, the show must go on. So a lot of the behind the scenes, you're setting up interviews. Okay, once you do that, you get to the interview, you do the interview. Once you're done, maybe take a lunch break if you get the chance. After that, you're gonna sit down. What's my story? What's my angle? How can I, move this forward? You write your script, you turn your script in, you wait for your news director to give you the thumbs up. Once you do that, you can go and track it in the audio booth. And if you're in MMJ like I was, at this point you are in Premiere Pro. If you've had a chance to work with
Yeah,
Premiere
we
Pro,
have a digital media academy here, and some of them are already familiar with that.
Yes, so that is great. That is a great tool to have, learning your ins and outs with Premiere Pro. You will, it's just the more you know about it, it doesn't matter what your position is, everything kind of works in a unison. So, being able to have worked all positions so far, MMJ, producer, reporter, anchor, I mean, you really get to learn how everything spins here. So does that kind of answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. Now, along the same lines, if somebody's saying, I'd really like to work in television, but I don't know if I like being on camera. There's a lot of people when a newscast is on the air that are working that you never see. So what are some of the other peripheral jobs that are just as important that are not in front of the camera?
Sure. Yeah. So, that's so funny. You probably wouldn't even believe me if I told you, but when I first started off as an MMJ producer, I literally hated being on camera. Like it's something that's so different to get used to, right? It's not like pulling out your cell phone and being on Snapchat camera. This is like a massive camera in front of your face, and you kind of grasp that you'll be broadcasted to all of the Jackson Metro. But to answer your question, so we have producer positions. We've got audio, if you like to learn an audio board, we've got audio, we've got director positions where you work with graphics. You literally kind of bring the show to life. Without our directors, we would not be able to hit the air every day. We've got, let's see, if you want to work more hands-on with news and essentially be like a reporter, but you don't want to like go out and do interviews and you don't want to put your face on TV, a producer would be a good position, because you kind of make the whole show. You are the driver of the ship, or so lots of positions behind the scenes. What you see in front, you can do photography also. You can be a photographer, which you are out in the field alongside a reporter, making things come to life. So yeah, a lot of positions.
Absolutely. And then, as you know, there's all kind of hours, there's people in that newsroom all night long. So if you want to work at night and you want to work in the news, they can find a spot for you.
Yeah. I will be so honest, like be prepared to be the most, if you like control of your life, just go ahead and let it go, because they really just, it's a learning experience, right? It's all hands off. You kind of just have to follow the lead of your management and your news directors and your leaders in the newsroom. So I wake up every day at 2 a.m. That's probably the time most of you are going to bed. So yes, I wake up at 2 a.m. and I have worked all 3 shifts. We've got 3 shifts. My shift starts at 3 a.m. So I have to be here at the news station at 3 a.m. We hit the air at 4:30 a.m. So for that hour and a half, I'm doing my makeup, I'm reading my scripts, putting together my stories, picking interviews, little interview snippets, we call them sound bites. So yeah, my shift goes from 3 a.m. to noon. So at 2 a.m. when I'm waking up, I hate it, but honestly at noon, I'm loving it because I have so much time for myself during the day. Now we have the normal shift, 9 a.m. to 6. We also have the night side shift. So if you are more of a night person, you can work 1:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Honestly, all of them have their pros and cons and their perks. I've worked all of them.
Absolutely.
So you kind of, I will say, like, if you work 9 to 6, you don't have a whole lot. There's no window in the morning or in the night for you to maybe do something a little extra. But if you work night side, which is that 1:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., there is a window in the morning. And if you work the mornings, you get off at noon, you've got some time. But yeah, I do go to bed at like 4 p.m., 5 p.m. every day. So lots, all over. The news never stops, you guys. Never stops.
And then, and a cool thing about TV is that, unlike a business, where you're going to run a commercial geared toward a certain group and only try to sell to a certain people. Everybody watches TV, no matter what age, no matter what gender, no matter what race, no matter what how much money they have. Because I've been watching David Hartman since I was 3-4 years old. So I've been watching TV that whole time. So literally, you have to really be, you got to do a good job covering, but you got to find things that people will watch that are of all ages. And even though we aren't in New York, it's still competitive because you got to get people with their eyes on the screen.
Yeah, definitely. The big question we ask ourselves every morning before we go to pitch a story is, who cares about this story? How many people does it impact? How does this affect my community? It's cheesy to say, and if you go into the news business, you'll hear it all the time, but you are essentially a voice for the voiceless. So, and you get stuff done. You really do. If you have no idea how much power you have being in this business, someone comes with you with a problem they're experiencing, like raw sewage in their front yard, and this is a real story. A man who was in a wheelchair had raw sewage in his front yard, and he was rolling through raw sewage every day, right? Like they come to us to, get answers. I've tried this, I've contacted the city, I've done this, and that. What can I do? They'll reach out to us and they look to us to help them find solutions, to broadcast it. I mean, stuff gets done in this business, and you are kind of at the front and center of that. So there's a lot of power being in this, and it's almost like everyday charity work in a sense.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, just in the few years you've been here, you've covered stories that have made international headlines. Because we had the water crisis, we had the abortion clinic, we had the changing of the state flag, and where me and you met with the shooting of the Lyft driver, that was making international headlines. So you've covered some big things that really the whole world was looking at Jackson.
Right. I mean, then in news, you learn a little bit about a lot. So sometimes within 24 hours, you'll become an expert on abortion law, right? So when Roe v. Wade happened, I mean, you just really learn, you hear about it, you've read about it in the textbooks, but you learn about it in a way that you've never learned before, right? So Roe v. Wade, the water crisis, all of a sudden, I know everything about chemicals and pH balances in a water, right? So, I mean, little things like that are flooding. You learn about, how, why an area floods more than the other, or which way the Pearl River travels, downstream, upstream, whatever, the reservoirs. So you become an expert in a lot. We've covered, as you mentioned, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I don't know if anybody knows, but the last standing abortion clinic in Mississippi was here in Fondren. So, I mean, it's a pink house that so many people pass by every day and probably don't even realize that was the clinic that was at the forefront of the nation's abortion law. So things like that are just so much bigger than us, that you have no idea, that you really kind of just learn as you go. The water crisis, the ice storm, flooding, historical flooding, so many things.
Yeah, and the international ballet competition, I forgot about that. All that was, you had journalists here from all over the world, and you were right there with them.
Oh yeah, so I mean that's kind of the other cool thing. I mean, for example, I was talking about this with one of our anchors, Cecil Hannibal. So we were talking about Rolling Fork, right? So if no one's familiar, just a quick background. Rolling Fork is a city in the Delta that was completely leveled by tornadoes, killed a lot of people. Something like that is a story that you've got, network reporters here going. So, you see us with like our little cameras and our microphone. But when you see the network reporters and they're in town, when you've got the lights, the tents, I mean, they don't mess around. The podium, like it's the real deal. So it really brings everyone from all over, reporters, anchors. I mean, you've got David Muir anchoring in the field in Rolling Fork, or Robin Roberts, or, whenever something big happens like that affects the community. For example, that shooting in Maine, the mass shooting in Maine, you've got some of the big faces of news, of TV, going and anchoring a whole show from Maine. So they go from New York to Maine. That'd be like taking me and putting me in Florida for a hurricane. But we're not on the national level. We just serve to you guys.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing, is that in the news, you may have your own opinion, but it's not your job to give an opinion. It's your opinion to show the people what's happening, and then let the viewer at home decide how they feel about it. So I think that's a really important job, because another friend of mine who's moved on to another city that was on the news, she had all kind of opinions, but she never let it be known on the air. She said, it's not my
Yeah.
job to tell people how to think. I'm just there to tell them the news and then let them decide how they feel about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are just like you guys. Like, I'm no different from any of you sitting in those chairs right now. I have an opinion just like you all, but at the end of the day, we have a job to do. And it's just like teaching. I mean, I'm sure, Greg, you have a lot of opinions, but you're not going to instill those in your students because your job is to teach and let them navigate themselves, right? So that's your job. You're like a teacher on a bigger scale on a TV screen, teaching people just like you about the biggest problems in the world. So, I see this a lot, just in some of the groups I'm in. For example, rights for the LGBTQ plus community, gay rights or transgender sports bans, kind of those topics going on right now. I know, you might be someone who's religious, who is working in news and maybe struggling to tell those stories because your religion doesn't agree with that. But that's a part of the job. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. I mean, your job is to give all sides of the news. That's what makes local television so important, because we're not entertainment. We have a duty to tell both sides. I mean, news directors will say, if you don't have the other side, I can't run your story.
Absolutely.
Like, that is the duty. So it's a part of the job. It may be hard. You may feel like you're going against your morals, but just know what you're getting into before you get into it.
Yeah, and I do have some great questions from the students I'm about to get to. But one thing before I get to that is that, for somebody that's thinking about getting into this field, because obviously we need good young people to get in this, and we need a diverse group in there to really reflect the population we're covering. But the thing about news and on TV or in TV period is, one, you can have a great shot, great script, great production, but you've got to be ready when that light comes on to have your face and everything ready to be on TV. It literally, you are always on stage. And the other thing is, I think the biggest skill lost in America right now with youth, and I'm not just speaking on the kids I have with me, I'm talking about the whole generation, is I think kids need to learn how to speak, articulate, and be confident when they do speak. You can't talk like you text. People are depending on you, and you can't, try to show off like a big vocabulary. I heard another news person say one time, you have to talk like you're talking to your grandmother. So everybody have to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I know social media is social media is so big, and it's a blessing and it's a curse in other ways, right? So yeah, when you are telling the news, you want to be an example for people, right? This isn't being an example on TikTok. This is being an example to, I mean, a much bigger audience, at the local level at least. So, one thing I am seeing, when I go out to stores, is I'm like, am I out of touch, or do I just not know what that means anymore? So yeah, you definitely have to articulate. You can't talk the way that you would on TikTok or on Snapchat or on Instagram. And if you feel like, listen, we like to code switch or get into slang also. There's some slang that we know from my generation that you guys may all not know. So we do that too, but just not on TV. That's for your social time. You're not socializing on TV. You're working. It's a sense of professionalism that's important to have. I know that what is this TikTok that's big right now? Like, don't throw none of that into your reporting unless you're doing a fun story. That's acceptable, but there will be a time and place for everything.
Yeah, and I almost forgot you mentioned that. A lot of people wonder where you guys get stories from, but it's crazy. A lot of times you're reaching out to the public and say, look, what do you want covered? Especially, because they always say, you hear so many people say, oh, the news is just always something bad. Well, you guys are always looking for cool things and good news to cover to highlight the good things going on in the community.
Yeah, for example, right now, I've been assigned a project. I'm expected to do 7 stories in honor of Kwanzaa. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So all the time in news, we always get people saying, you guys always highlight the worst parts of, X, Y, and Z. You guys always highlight the worst parts of the city or this. And I'm like, okay, well, hey guys, let me reach out to you right now. I want to highlight the best parts of X, Y, and Z. And you guys are always the ones complaining about it. So send me your good stories. Send me the lighthearted stories. So yeah, I will just say this: the best part to get familiar with people is don't treat this like a job. Don't treat the people that you want to interview like a job or like a checkbox. They're not assignments. They essentially become like friends, like family, even if you don't agree with whatever scandal they're involved in. I mean, the way these stories are be able to brought to your screens are by building relationships. So these
Absolutely.
people, I see them more than just an assignment, but more like friends. If I see them in the grocery store, I'm gonna ask them how their family is doing. I'm not gonna just talk about what's on TV or what's on the news. Like, we're humans. Like I said, we are just like you guys every day. We go home and we go to sleep and we drink the same water. There's really no difference there. But just learning how to talk to people, how to socialize, how to communicate. Don't be buried in your phones. You actually need to talk to people, ask them how they're doing, ask them something about the personal. What you have for breakfast? I mean, I always like to have a line when I call a source or when I call, I don't know, I'll just say something like, you've been up all hours of the night, or, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? Like, not the same, hey, this is Michaila with 16 WAPT News. I was just calling. I mean, I sound like a telemarketer, right? So if I got that call, click, like, so it's important to build relationships and build genuine relationships, because I know when I leave this place, I'm genuinely going to miss all of the people that I've formed relationships with here too. So that's a part of it. Yeah.
All right, so I got some really good questions from the students. I'll get to as many of these as I can. This first one is Javion Fields, one of our football players here at Velma Jackson. And he asked, do you ever get scared or nervous in front of the camera? And how do you ensure accuracy in your reporting?
All the time. I literally was nervous today. We did the turkey drive 16 cut in, and I was like, ooh, I'm a little nervous. Like, I've been doing this for 3 years, but I definitely still get nervous. How do I ensure accuracy? What's the second part of that question?
Oh, how do you ensure accuracy in your reporting?
Accuracy in your reporting. So I will say that there's a big pressure in this business to get stuff right.
Oh, yeah.
The big pressure with it. We're human though, we make mistakes. And I think being kind to yourself is a big part of it too, is that you're not going to be perfect every single day. To make sure you're accurate is pay attention. Like, that is literally, like, that's kind of something that I'm seeing with some of, younger generation, is like, you've got to put your phone down and actually pay attention and take notes and ask questions. If you feel, no, seriously, this is just like school. Ask your elected official the questions. If you think it's a dumb one, there is no dumb question. It's the same thing a teacher tells you at the start of the school year. No question is a dumb question. You've got to take that same energy with you into the field here in journalism. No question is a dumb question, because if you don't ask the question, then you're never going to know. So ensuring accuracy is ask the question. When is that road going to be closed? Why is it going to be closed? How much is this project going to cost? Why is it so many millions of dollars? I mean, just whatever questions you have in your mind. I mean, you are your community. You are speaking for your community. So ask questions, take notes, and always double check your facts.
Absolutely. This is Jakeithia Brown, and she asked, what's the craziest story you've ever covered?
Oh gosh, craziest story. Oh, that's hard. That's a hard question. I mean, Roe v. Wade was a big one. The water crisis was a big one. I would say the water crisis. I will say this. So I work the weekends, right? Last year, Christmas was on a Sunday. I'm thinking, like, I'm gonna get off the anchor desk and I'm gonna go home and spend Christmas with my fiance. No, it was a completely different day than I imagined. We woke up, essentially, families in Jackson had no water on Christmas Day. So think about it. What are you doing on Christmas Day? You are probably cooking, getting ready to take, your mashed potatoes or your mac and cheese, or, your rolls that you just got out the oven to your family's house. Well, people couldn't do that because they had no water on Christmas Day. You can't flush your toilet. You can't brush your teeth. You can't take a shower. So you're going to grandma's house with your hair looking crazy because you couldn't wash your hair that morning. I mean, you can't do simple things. You can't boil a pot of water, for the mac and cheese noodles. So much that you can't do. So, I mean, that was a pretty crazy story. A lot of crime stories too, horrible things. But I mean, I would say that one kind of comes up to my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and literally, we had journalists from Japan here covering that water crisis, so it was nuts.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. This is Micaiah Luckett. She's one of our basketball players here at Velma Jackson. And she asked, how hard is it to quickly research and report a breaking news story?
I wouldn't say hard. I will just say the pressure is on. I mean, I'll be very honest with you. It feels like someone put you in a pressure cooker and turned it on and like it's just steam blowing. Like you've got 20 minutes it gets easier. You know, eventually you don't have to take notes anymore. I always encourage taking notes, but eventually you're just like, okay, so for example, what happens quickly, yesterday we had a standoff in Utica. Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a standoff in Utica. You've got to rush to the scene, and our show starts at 5 p.m. The expectation is you will have something to say live on television at 5 p.m. and you will be the first breaking news. So say you get to Utica at 4:50, you better be ready to get on TV in 10 minutes.
Wow.
Like 5 minutes. So you need to get the facts, you need to get them quick, and you need to ad-lib it. So bullet points, get the facts, bullet points, and ad-lib it. I mean, if you gave me bullet points right now, I could probably put together a quick report in my head just because it's routine at this point. But it's not hard. It's just you've got to be able to perform under pressure. So my athletes, any athletes that want to be journalists, this is kind of like you've got to be able to get on the court, on the soccer field, on the gridiron, and perform, or the swimming pool, whatever sport that you do. You just have to be able to perform and deliver it fast, quick, and accurate. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, that was a great answer. Here's a good one. This is Michaila Dawson. She's one of our cheerleaders here. And she asked, what are your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to technological advances in the news business?
I don't know if there are any. You're very tech savvy, and if you're not, then like this business will make you tech savvy. I mean, even some of the people who've been in this business for 30 years still know, you know, how to operate certain things, or you know, how they want certain things done with Premiere Pro, with editing, cutting. So, and you learn ENPS, and I will say internships are always good. When I was doing my internship, I learned ENPS, which is our whole system. Without ENPS, there is no show. So don't be afraid of the technology advances. You guys will be fine. You guys are probably the most tech savvy generation we have. So I'm not worried about you guys.
Yeah, but that's something that's not going away. I mean, they're going to automated cameras.
Yeah.
I mean, and then with all the new video editing software, things you're going to have to learn. But Michaela's in our digital media academy, so she's getting experience right now in 9th grade.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I just got two more. This is Caden Myers, another one of our football players, and he asked, "How do you stay up to date with current events and news trends?"
CNN.com. I mean, every day I wake up, I look what's on headlines right now, you know, because if we're not doing local stories, then we're going to put the biggest national news out there. So some of the same things that we're seeing in the headlines, government shutdown, you know, the war in the Middle East, which I know, you know, if you're not familiar with it, I know you've come across it on Instagram because we're seeing a lot of strong opinions on there, right? It's kind of similar when Ukraine and Russia went to war. So just whatever's on the front page of CNN is the biggest news. If it's not big news, it's not going to be on the front page. And it doesn't have to be CNN. It can be ABC, NBC, whatever your preference is. Yeah. Fox. I mean, whatever is biggest news, you will know about it. A lot of times you guys don't even realize, but some of the things you see on Instagram are news. So absolutely. Yeah.
All right, this is the last one, and this is a great one. This is Mariah Harris, another one of our basketball players, and one of our dancers here. And she asked, you obviously get up every day and the news never stops, but do you ever take time to relax?
Oh, Mariah, I love that question. Like life, I think it's trial and error. It's something that I'm learning, and I'm learning every day, and I'll be very transparent and vulnerable with you all. It is not easy. I mean, to be successful in this business, to be successful as a journalist, I mean, you really have to dive head first and not look back, which means completely immersing yourself in the journalism. Like, I could say probably for the first year and a half of doing this, like, you don't turn it off. You really don't. And it becomes really difficult. And at some point you kind of just hit bottom and you're like, whoa, how did I get here? Well, I got here by not turning it off. Now, I say that to say that I'm glad that I grinded my tail off to be where I am today. But it's just a part of the business. To be good at it, you know, that work to life balance sometimes doesn't exist. It's really like this. There's a combination, and sometimes when you kind of get more into it, you start filtering out. And let me just say it like this. You're going out to dinner with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your fiance, your family. You're in the car, but you see 15 police cars flying in the opposite direction. What that looks like for me is like, I want to pull my phone out, start recording, and then send it to the newsroom. Hey guys, I just saw 15 police cars going down this way, blah, 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 blah. Someone might want to check on this. Okay, now we can go to dinner. So
I've actually seen that. Tammy Eswick, who used to be a WAPT as well. She was eating at the IHOP and they got robbed, and she pulls out her dang phone and goes to Facebook Live, and WAPT went, I was like, man, this woman can't even eat dinner.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's real life. You've got to love what you do. I mean, this business is not for the weak. And if you guys ever have questions, please email me. I would be happy to get on the phone with you, because honestly, it's something that I wish I was told in college was like, this is not for the weak. It's very mentally challenging. It's physically challenging on your body. It's very stressful, but you've got to remember why you started in this business in the first place. And the minute you forget that is the minute where you kind of get out of touch with your spirit. And, you know, that's when you start getting the rocky choppy. So it's hard. There will be times where I'll be, I know a few days ago, I was at the gym working out, you know, with my partner. This is my free time, but I see like 2 Capitol Police cars, sirens going off. I mean, I had to put the weights down and just ask, because it piqued my curiosity, like what's going on. And you also have that fear, you know, this business is super competitive. You don't want to miss something. You don't want to miss the breaking news. I mean, it's like win breaking news. It's like pounded into your brain. Win, 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 win. So that same aspect you have with your sport, you know, of not being able to turn it off, is kind of that same aspect that you have.
Wow.
But my biggest advice is don't forget why you started. So
absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much.
Yes, I'm sorry, my answers are so long.
No, this is great, and you know, a lot of kids are going to see this. But before we go, a couple things. First of all, tell us when to watch you and where to find you on social media.
Okay, so you can follow me on Instagram, Kayla on Cam, CHAILA on Cam, CAM. You can find me on Twitter. I'm not active on there, but Facebook too. You can follow my Facebook through the 16 WAPT station. You'll know which one it is. I'm wearing like a red dress in the picture. That would be a good way to see, you know, sometimes we go live on breaking news and you can really grasp, you know, because that's uncut, not edited. So, and email, go to wapt.com, look for talent, and you can find my email. So yeah.
And when are you on?
I'm on, if you want to wake up at 4:30 a.m. tomorrow, you can watch me on channel 16. And you can also, we'll be on from 4:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then on the weekends, I'm on from 5 to 7 a.m. and 8 to 9 a.m. So yeah.
Awesome. Now, before we go, you know, obviously, like we said, this field needs good young people. It needs a diverse talent pool. It needs ladies. It needs guys. So why should these kids really look into getting into the news business?
Why should they get into the news business? Just kind of what you said. You know, a lot of times people have complaints, and it's, again, it sounds corny, but be the change that you want to see. If you watch the news and you don't like how something was done, or how maybe a certain community was represented, or how, you know, whatever it may be, or you want to shine more light into a certain area, join news. Be the change that you want to see. I mean, if you want to see more things about health, right, or diabetes, or mental health for athletes, like, your news director will give you a time and a place to put those stories out there. So if there's any change that you want to see, be the change.
Love it. Great advice. So Michaila Franklin, WAPT News, thanks for fitting us in. We really appreciate it. Everybody needs to follow her on social media, watch her early in the morning. And as always, man, just thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. All righty. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.